You are already smiling when it happens. The person in front of you clearly remembers you. They mention where you met, repeat something you told them, and ask how your sister is doing. Then they pause, waiting for you to say something back. You know their face. You remember the story about their new job. You even remember the strange drink they ordered the last time you met. But their name is gone. Not hidden, not almost there, gone. For the next 10 seconds, you perform a small piece of social theater. You avoid using any name at all. You ask a question that might make someone else say it. You glance at their phone, their badge, the people around them. And beneath the panic is a much harsher thought. If I really cared about this person, wouldn't I remember what they are called? This is why forgetting names feels more personal than forgetting almost anything else. Forgetting a date looks careless. Forgetting a detail looks distracted. Forgetting a name feels like a judgment. It seems to say, you did not matter enough to stay. But that interpretation rests on a misunderstanding of memory. The brain does not preserve people as complete files. It builds them from fragments, associations, emotions, patterns, and meaning. And a name is often the least meaningful fragment in the entire encounter. That creates the central contradiction. Some people remember the human being and lose the label. Society sees the missing label and assumes the human being was never registered. And why are the people most ashamed of forgetting often the same people who were paying attention to everything else? To understand this, return to the first seconds of meeting someone. The other person says, "Hi, I'm Daniel." But the mind is not sitting in silence, waiting for the word Daniel. It is processing a face, posture, eye contact, tone, age, context, social rank, familiarity, safety, and the question of what to say next. Into this crowded room, the name enters as a single arbitrary sound. Daniel. It does not explain anything. It does not naturally connect to the person's face, history, or behavior. Unless the brain immediately builds a bridge, the sound remains alone. And isolated information is fragile. This is the central metaphor. A name is a label placed on a box, but memory is far more interested in what is inside the box. The brain stores the contents because they create a network. Each detail connects to something else. The name may connect to nothing. Later, when the box appears again, the person recognizes everything inside it but cannot read the label. Meaning creates hooks. Emotion creates weight. Surprise creates contrast. A name offered once during social noise may have none of those advantages. This is why the same word can be easy to remember in one context and difficult in another. If someone says a person is a baker, the mind receives images: bread, flour, heat, early mornings, the smell of a shop. If baker is simply the surname, the word arrives without a story. The sound is identical. The psychological structure is completely different. One version opens a web of associations. The other hangs in empty space. People often believe memory works like a camera. Information enters, gets recorded, and can later be replayed. But memory is closer to a reconstruction system. It saves what appears useful, emotional, connected, or unusual. It compresses experience. It does not preserve every detail equally. It may remember the person's face instantly, while the name feels newly introduced every time. The brain is not failing to record reality. It is deciding which parts of reality deserve structure. This is also why names are easier to lose when a person appears in a new setting. The colleague known only at work may seem strangely unfamiliar in a grocery store. The face is present, but the usual context is missing. Memory often stores identity together with place, role, and atmosphere. Remove those supports, and the label becomes harder to reach, even when recognition is immediate. Yet there is a second layer, and this one is more uncomfortable. Chronic name forgetters are often not absent during introductions. They are too present in the wrong place. Their attention has turned inward. While the other person speaks, they are monitoring themselves. The mind becomes a control room filled with warning lights. The name enters, but the system is busy managing the performance. The person may care deeply about making a good impression, and that effort prevents the impression from being encoded. The internal belief becomes, "I have to monitor myself carefully, or I will get this wrong." The protective reaction is constant self-editing. The visible behavior is polite attention, but beneath the surface, working memory is occupied. The name arrives at the exact moment the person is preparing the next sentence. It is heard, but never given a place to land. This is why people often remember less of what someone says immediately before their own turn to speak. The mind has already left the conversation and entered rehearsal. For someone with intense self-awareness, every interaction can become permanent rehearsal. They are physically present, but mentally standing one step ahead, waiting for their cue. Names disappear in that gap. The person later concludes, "I have a terrible memory." But the problem may not begin with storage. The information was never fully encoded. You cannot retrieve what was never given enough attention to become stable. That distinction matters because shame treats forgetting as a character flaw. But sometimes the person forgot because they were trying so hard not to appear selfish, dismissive, or careless. Their attention was consumed by the effort to seem socially acceptable. The defense created the failure it was trying to prevent. And this is where the problem grows. After forgetting several names, the person enters new introductions, already afraid of repeating the mistake. Someone says, "Hi, I'm Melissa." The person immediately thinks, "Remember Melissa. Do not forget Melissa. Melissa. Melissa." But now the name is surrounded by pressure. Part of the mind is listening. Another part is testing whether the listening is working. The name becomes associated not with the human being, but with the fear of forgetting. Later, the anxiety returns first. The label does not. The attempt to force memory can make the encounter feel less natural and still fail to build meaningful association. There is also a particular type of thinker who forgets names for a different reason. Their memory is highly contextual. They store stories, emotional tones, visual details, and patterns. Ask them what happened in the conversation, and they can reconstruct the room. Ask for the name, and the system goes blank. This kind of mind organizes people by psychological texture rather than official label. It is simply poorly optimized for isolated verbal tags. The flattering version of this explanation would be that everyone who forgets names is secretly deep, sensitive, and creative. That would be false. Sometimes forgetting a name does communicate low attention. The behavior alone cannot reveal the motive. But neither can the forgotten name prove that the person did not care. Two people can make the same mistake for opposite reasons. One never registered the conversation, the other registered everything except the label. The code lies in what remains. A person who remembers none of that may not have been paying attention. A person who remembers all of it but loses the name has a different memory problem. The emotional sting on the other side is still real. When someone forgets your name, the explanation happening inside their brain is invisible. You experience only the pause, the vague greeting, the obvious attempt to avoid saying it. The mind translates that moment quickly. I was not important. Names are deeply tied to identity. Hearing your name signals recognition. Forgetting it can feel like social erasure. This creates a painful mismatch. The forgetter may remember the person vividly, but cannot prove it in the form society expects. The forgotten person may feel unseen, even while being remembered in every way that actually describes them. Both experiences are true. Intention does not erase impact, and impact does not always reveal intention. This is why the shame can become so intense. The person who forgets begins avoiding social situations where the mistake might be exposed. The longer they avoid the name, the more emotionally charged it becomes. What began as a weak memory trace becomes a threat to identity. The label carries the weight of morality. Memory performs worse under that kind of pressure. The name becomes a locked door, and panic keeps pushing against it. Yet the person may walk away and remember the name an hour later while doing something unrelated. This delayed return reveals another truth. Retrieval depends on context. The brain often needs the right pathway. The information was not always destroyed. Access was blocked. The pressure disappears, the search loosens, and the brain finally reaches the label. But the social moment has already passed. Return to the encounter from the beginning. The person remembers you. They ask about your sister. You remember their job, their drink, and the story they told you. But the name is missing. Earlier, that blank space felt like proof of indifference. Now it looks more complicated. The mind stored the person as meaning, not as a clean file. It preserved the contents and lost the label. None of this guarantees that forgetting is harmless, but it changes what the mistake means. The deepest reversal is this. Names are supposed to prove recognition, yet sometimes the person who remembers the name knows less about you than the person who forgot it. One stored the label, the other stored the human being. Memory is not fair, organized, or socially elegant. It is selective. It keeps what creates weight. The arbitrary sound may vanish while the emotional texture remains. And that is why forgetting someone's name does not always mean they failed to matter. Sometimes they mattered in every way except the one easiest to test in public.